Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Friday Live reading for July 10th. This is sadly our penultimate reading. We have one more coming up next week, and then we're going to take a break for I don't know how long. But it's been a delight to have all these wonderful authors on every week throughout these pandemic times. Today is extra special as well, as we will be announcing the shortlist for the Hummingbird Flash Fiction Prize at the end of the program, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Today we have Angela Caravan, who's coming to us from Vancouver. We have Cheryl Wollner from Florida and Patti Jeane Pangborn from Louisiana. So welcome to all of you. And our first reader this morning is Angela Caravan. So, and actually it's pretty special because we have two contest winners. Angela was a runner-up for the Magpie Award in 2018, and Cheryl was the Raven winner in 2018. And so it's very appropriate that we're going to be listing our Hummingbird shortlist. Angela Caravan lives in unceded Coast Salish territory in Vancouver, BC, and writes both poetry and fiction. She's the author of the micro chapbook Landing from Post Ghost Press. Her poem My Desk was the runner-up in the 2018 Magpie Award for poetry, and it appeared in issue 20. Her work has also appeared in Broken Pencil, Cascadia Rising Review, Sad Mag, and more. And you can find her on Twitter at @A_Caravan. So welcome, Angela.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So you're going to give us a few poems this morning, I understand?
Yeah, I'm going to do two poems. The first one's a little bit longer, and the second one's a little shorter. So.
All right. Well, I will hand the mic over to you.
Great. So the first poem I'm going to read is a bit of an apocalypse poem, which I wrote a few years ago, but returned to a few times in the pandemic situation. I don't really think of it as a pandemic poem since I wrote it a while ago, but while it has an apocalypse setting, it's sort of more about office work and the absurdity of office space, which is maybe also why I've returned to it a few times recently. I think it's sort of a fitting poem for right now. And it's called Chief Executive Doom Officer. Sand dusts off caps in droves. Watch it patiently, hope. The dunes ahead flatten before we crest. Water is kept here. Everybody knows this? Yes? Now, everybody knows. We held a meeting last night in our make-do tents of various clothing items, business casual, as it seems that some people need to be onboarded to the idea that the world has most likely collapsed. I'm just saying, we could be lost for a while, or we could reach something tomorrow. The apocalypse looks good from an office window. Huddle together and remember what it was like to team build at the 11th story with people we weren't necessarily trapped with, per se. Like that day Steve gave notice and you got his desk, the one farthest away from the door. Clean landscapes make for the best view. Watch sand fade in repetition, like the bubbling rise of the water cooler. But Steve's not here. Steve may be dead. Steve moved to Michigan, and who knows what happened over there. We need to conserve supplies. Someone's been stealing staplers and Post-its. Now we're all going to pay. Keep walking until 6:15 p.m. to avoid guilt, or appear to possess it more so. I think I see water, Glenn shouting, returning looks of reproach. His ideas just don't make sense, she whispers around cubicles made of blazers that gently sift out the sun. I think we all agree that Glenn needs a break, and he is not questioned when he calls in sick next sunrise, hoveling in a sand pile. Don't see him around anymore. Some just drop out like that. Kelsey takes the lead on the next leg, showing us you just need to take initiative to get ahead, and launches bodily into the abyss. Her cards flutter around her as the sand moves too quickly, and she's gone by the time we reach the pinnacle of Dune number 3. Pick up one card, and then another. We must keep them for fuel. The letters are dusted until they've almost vanished. The unfriendly reminder of what we once were are painted on status in a wash of minerals.
Well, that is appropriate and prophetic of you to write it. And I love the title.
Thanks. So the second poem I'm going to read, I think sort of fits well with that one. They're very different in tone, but there's some similarities. There's also a sandiness to it, I guess. That's maybe why I chose it. But I think they're sort of a good contrast to each other.
All right.
And so this poem is called Two Women Talk About Theology on a Beach at Midnight. Prayers come easy in a world dusted over with wants, kicking the needs off when tapping shoes at the entry. A plea to abandon all appetite and find God in the denial of solids, leaving that last ounce of desire for alcohol alone. I found God after my lips turned purple from the wine, and I didn't mind telling you that believing in something you don't understand is liberation, that believing in objects that are tactile and factual in essence is an easy out. Can't swim in the same sandy bodies twice, especially when you paddled for 10 odd years through the silted oceans of God's love. I won't say he because that's ridiculous. Just repeat God, 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 lowercase, like I'm in love, not disenfranchised, looking for every possible space to remove men from the conversation. The sand on our shoes casting history in your car seat, and walk away resplendent, our votes cast in victory and misaligned.
Oh, I love that. I love that line. The disenfranchised. It would just. Can you read that line again?
Yeah. It's like I'm in love, not disenfranchised.
Yes.
Looking for every possible space to remove men from the conversation.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What a wonderful way of putting it. I do have a question from the audience. Amazing poetry. Where do you hear these voices?
That's a hard question to ask. I think they come from different places. The first poem is sort of more of just a fictional, sort of absurd kind of story. It almost reads more as a story than a poem. The second one is sort of inspired by my life, and it's a sort of about a close friend of mine who used to talk about God on the beach when we were younger. So that's kind of where that one came from. But, yeah.
So what's your process when you're writing? Do you just sort of keep a notebook with you, or do you just sit down to write and hope something comes at the time, or how does that go?
I keep a notebook with me a lot of the time. I find that I can't really force myself to sort of schedule writing. It's more just when I feel like I'm in the right mood for it. And maybe that means I'm sitting down with the intention to write, but it might not come at that time. But I'm very much about being in the right space or the right feeling to write. When I used to transit a lot, I would write a lot of poems on the bus on my phone, because I think that's sort of just a good sort of absent space where you're just kind of sitting there, don't have much to do, and you're kind of in your head a little more. So
yeah. And a nice way to empty it out of your brain while you're sitting there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for those two wonderful poems. Stick around, and if anybody else in the audience has questions, please put them up in the chat on the YouTube, and Mel is backstage to pass them over to us. And I am going to bring our next guest on. So please welcome Cheryl Wollner. Cheryl Wollner's fiction and nonfiction has appeared in anthologies Today, Tomorrow, Always, #Queer Volume 3, and the Best of Loose Change Anthology, as well as in additional print and online venues. Their story, Girls Who Dance in the Flames, won our 2018 Raven Short Story Contest and appeared in issue 22. They're pursuing their MFA in fiction at Florida Atlantic University, where they're the managing editor of Swamp Ape Review. Currently, they're writing an alternate history novel about Bess and Harry Houdini, and I got to tell you, that has me so excited. I can't wait for you to finish that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, welcome, Cheryl. I'm going to hand the mic right over to you, because this is a little bit of a longer story than we usually get, but I want us to hear all of it. So.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Girls Who Dance in the Flames. Constance lets Doc Jasper probe about her mouth with his tobacco-stained fingers. He prods her gums to bleeding, fingers the sores on her lips, the blisters bursting on her tongue. She lets him pinch the vein in her elbow, stick a needle in her arm. He say, she need rest. He say, she not in her right mind. He say, real quiet when he thinks I'm not at the window peeking in. Shameless girl like you won't mind. And runs a hand along the inside of her thighs. She spits at his back, but won't say nothing to his face. And maybe that's a good choice on account of how city she sounds since the Navy. Before, she talked all sand, good and grainy, running through the holes in your fingers like cornmeal, like eating the burnt edges of pan biscuits. Now, even around her bruised lips, she talks like polished glass. She lopes wild to that cypress tree, chin high, cheeks blazing, and I race after her. We're like marbles about to collide. Back when we shot marbles and scooted muddy elbows and knees across her ma's sawdust floor. But I done check already. Constance ain't under that cypress tree, trying to mourn over the watery grave. I ain't a mourner. I'm running to the ricketiest edge of Oak Bridge, jump off the pier. Don't care I'm in my school skirt, white socks like leg irons. Soon enough, I'm gonna quit school for real. I just gotta make it to 16. Constance, she used to say that it gets better, but she don't say that no more. She don't say much of anything anymore. She just sits in her skin where her baby once was, and she don't look right. I leap off the bridge and slam into the water. The river kisses my face, smells salted as clams. I want a clam. Don't want to wait for John and his fishing boat to cruise in. Don't got no money to buy a clam off his cart. I breathe big, then plunge down through the floating moss, swatting at water bugs and algae, stroke like a frog to the soiled sludge bottom. My hands become shovels, my eyes blinded by the fistfuls of grit I overturn. I just want one clam, raw and slimy as I feel. I can swallow objects. I can hold them in my throat, then spit them back into my mouth. And that's how I'll eat my clam. If I don't find any clams, find a rock instead. NightBlock, flat as my palm and just as scarred and readable. I'm teaching myself to tell fortunes. Had to do something when Constance left, back when she was dreamy-eyed with plans to be the first female officer, an ambassador, a diplomat, words she read about in the weekly paper. Instead, she was some man's secretary, another man's whore, came back home stained with his child. I surface for air, then down, down again, because I see a shadow of a boat inching close, lazy, crooning, and smoothed with hazy heat. I'll tip that boat right over. But that's Constance in the boat. She screams when she sees me, then quiets down, her big moon eyes settling on her face. I pull myself up to sit across from her, rake my hair off my face, and wave like I got webbed fingers. Folk call me a river witch, say they pray for my soul. I show Constance my rock, nestled in mud on my palm. Constance ain't noticed yet, but I've cut my lifeline real long and around my hand like a ribbon across a Christmas present. Constance don't look up. She's tearing all the stitches out of the baby dresses her mom made her sew, her rusty knife stabbing at the air. She's cut her hair to her ears, tears to the jagged edges, picks at her ravaged face. She's raised the mosquito net on her hat and scratches at a string of bites along her neck. I try to explain about all the tricks I learned while she'd been gone, but my lopsided face just ain't made right for words. Constance's white dress is stained with ash and smoke, mud coasting along her hem. She strikes a match against her white heels and brings the flames to her lips. Quick, so the flame don't go out, she curls her tongue around the edges of light until all that's left is smoke, curling through her teeth. She flicks the spent match into a pile of others, burning holes through the dresses she gutted. I can't imagine her baby in those dresses. Her baby wasn't much of anything anyhow, just crying flesh, slippery with Constance's insides. And what we done under that cypress tree was better for that baby than it living with a ma who don't want you none, let me tell you. Constance lights another match. She'll burn down the whole town soon. She don't gotta tell me for me to know. At Doc Jasper's house, she'll lay his porch sopping wet with my ma's bathtub liquor and whiskey she stole from her pa's cellar. She'll pour and pour in the middle of the night, making puddles in Doc Jasper's favorite chair, drowning out his spidery potted plants. I'll cram oily rags through the cracks under the floorboards, and it won't take long at all to light a good blaze. Constance will torch John's boathouse next. As the planks buckle and warp and the stone cracks, I'll pretend she's getting back at John for all the times he shoved me to the ground. He used to swear he was in love with Constance, lay her down, kiss her neck, twirl the edges of her flowing hair. I got it all planned. I'll empty the rain barrels, bar the firehouse door, steal the gongs off the bells so Vincent can't sound the alarm. I'll throw all Vincent's firehouse and buckets out where the crocodiles keep watch. In the glow of her fires, Constance will rain cooking oil down her face, scrub her skin golden with lard, and when she touches a torch to her lips, she won't be doing it to join her baby. She'll be doing it to look like me, so we'll be monstrous girls together. But I will stop her before the fire eats her alive. I will press her body against mine, draw my ugly lips to each bug bite, eat the flames off her face and tongue. I will lead her to the boat I've stolen, and we'll dance through the flames, screaming wild over the cries of the dogs barking, the chickens burning alive in their coops. But before I leave town, I'll climb up the clothesline and whisper to my ma through the crack in the window shutter, sorry. Just in case there is a God, and just in case my ma and all my half-brothers and sisters get caught in the flames. But then I'll be gone, trailing torches, hoping the moss catches behind me. Once Constance and me are safe out on the river, there'll be no more need for matches. From our boat with the town no more than spirals of smoke behind us, we'll watch crocodiles swim past, wearing Vincent's buckets for shoes. What is so funny? Constance asks. She lets this match lick her skin away. Crocs wearing bucket feet, I say. She laughs. Her laugh is still the same. Doc Jasper, he thinks he's sending her to a nunnery, me to an asylum for what we done to her baby. But he's wrong. He's gonna burn. I scrape the mud off my hand, lick my palm for the salt, then swallow my rock. I hold it in my throat as a grainy promise to keep Constance safe. Constance is out of matches. She jiggers her fingers between her knees. When I take her hand, I trace her lifeline. Short, stubby like mine had been until I cut my own. Never thought to check the baby's lifeline. It must not have been that long. Constance pulls her hand back, quick, silent. It's quite pretty out here, she says. Yep, out here on the river where the flames can't follow.
Thank you so much for that wonderful reading, Cheryl. That is such an amazing story, and it was, we were so happy when CC Humphreys chose it as the winner, because we all loved that story when it went through the shortlist. There's so much packed into there. There's so much backstory. Is there anything else to these characters? Have they had other stories before, or was this all for this one piece?
This was all for this one piece, but when I was initially writing it, it was like a 30-page something that wasn't going anywhere, and really the only consistency was the two main characters. So I just took kind of the concept I was working with and cut it down to what I thought was really the core of the relationship.
Well, you've done a beautiful job, because we feel like we feel those characters' backstories, and we're curious about them. We don't know them, but it works for the story, and it's so poignant and heartbreaking, and yet empowering at the same time. So it's quite magical.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And I have a question from the audience. Do you see your imagery or do you feel it?
I'm really not sure how to answer that. I think it's also a different process when I'm reading something versus when I'm writing it.
Right.
I think that when I'm reading it, I definitely see it. But I think that when I'm writing it, it feels more like a body thing where I'm feeling it.
Right. Oh, and there's a message from Faith Wollner that says, I love you so much. Love, Mom.
Thank you, Mother. Mother was my biggest support system.
And there was another question here. Have you thought about writing a novel about Constance after you've finished with Houdini and Bess?
I have not, but I can definitely consider that. I appreciate the thought.
All right. Well, stick around. We will bring our next guest on and then have you back at the end in case there are more questions. Thank you so much.
Branches bend and stretch, their snapping echoes. The windows blown out glass, suspended curtains, reaching after the shards. The German plates and doilies, my school pictures in their frames, cracked and smiling. My mother's open jewelry box sails lazily out her bedroom window, trailing my baby teeth, my father's watch, his wedding ring. The metal roof begins to give, opening on one side like a hinge, and I see birds' nests made of my rust-stained hair glide by. Feel the floor of the trailer begin to rise, its skirt lifting in metallic squeals as the eye of my dream shudders past.
That's such a beautiful juxtaposition of memory and immediate panic. That's a wonderful way to look at memories as they fly past in a tornado.
Yeah, thank you. So the next one is called Grandmother Vine. And this was inspired by, I was lucky enough to go to the Juniper Writing Institute at UMass a couple summers ago, and I worked with the poet CAConrad, and they do these amazing writing exercises where you just like sit with anything, and this happened to be a plant, and you just examine it and experience it with all of your senses. And so this poem came out of that exercise. It's called Grandmother Vine. Leaves or fairy wings, heart-shaped, curved shoulders are warm, even in shade, the thick vein her spine. A white aura frames each leaf. I'm certain something more could grow here, where leaf connects to vine. Brown tendrils shrink, but newer, greener ones reach out for sun maybe or soil. Each leaf smells sweet, and some are beginning to decay, spots of brown eating away the thick wall of her back. My last memories of my grandmother are of food on the corner of her mouth instead of lipstick. She rocked a baby doll to sleep at night. I listened to the crackle of each leaf against my ear, hearing her voice over the phone lines.
I love that poem too. And like I said, anyone who wants to reread that, go and take a look at the blog.
Yeah. Okay, so this last one is inspired by the amazing swampy landscape that I'm surrounded by here in Louisiana, that I love, and I'm sad to leave as I move north soon. But so yeah, it was inspired by just a walk in the swamp, really. It's called Messaging. Walking out to the end of the trail, I scare up a blue heron and sit amongst the roots of trees, smooth and knobby, like elbows and knees, or tiny monuments built by a defunct civilization. Old nest of moss feels dead and machine-made. I peel away a vine growing up a tree and regret it. A voice over the water asks a question that I can't hear, but I dip my fingers in to connect and signal my response anyway. Thank you.
Oh, that's beautiful. That that is so evocative. I can just see the swamp and that line of peeling a vine off the tree and then regretting it. Like, yeah, it's very moving.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for those wonderful poems. And I'm going to bring all of our guests back on stage now. And there's a question from the audience for Patti. So it says, it sounds like environment, like living in Louisiana, really informs your poetry. How many places have done that?
It ends up happening with every place that I live, but it's strange because it's usually delayed. So I'll have to have lived there for a while or have already left to suddenly be like, oh, I need to write about this landscape. So for a while when I first moved here to Louisiana, I was still writing kind of poems that were inspired by the city, because I came from Chicago before I came here, and then before that it was Michigan. So it's usually the environment always ends up influencing, but it's like a delayed reaction. I can't ever write about it in the moment for some reason.
Oh, that makes perfect sense to me. It's like it's not until it's memory that it kind of then you need to write about it to maintain those memories. I found that I wrote about London after I moved from there, so it was like it wasn't interesting to me until after I'd left.
Right.
So we're almost at the end of the time. So I did promise that I would announce the shortlisted authors. I'm not going to give away the titles of the stories because Bob Thurber is still at work deciding on our winners. But the shortlisted authors for the 2020 Hummingbird Flash Fiction Prize are, in alphabetical order by first name, Andrew Moore, Cadence Madibura, Candace Kubanek, Hannah Van Didden, Jade Williams, Laura Kuhlman, Soramimi Hanarajima, and Stephen Simonchik. Those are a lot of difficult names to pronounce. I hope I'm getting your names correct. Anyway, you will notice there were only 8 names read, and that is because 2 of those authors have 2 stories in the shortlist. So well done, all of you. And we will be announcing the winners. Normally we announce on the 15th of July, but we have a book launch coming up on the 19th, which is going to be live on Discord. It won't be recorded. But all you out in the audience are welcome to join on the Pulp Literature Discord channel, and the links for that will be up on our website. And we will hopefully have as many of the shortlists there as possible so that we can announce the winner in person and have readings from them. So before I let you guys go, I want to ask the question I always ask at the end. What are you working on next, or what are you working on now, or what's around the corner for you? So Angela, let's start with you.
I've been doing more short story writing recently, so I always have some of those in the works. But I've also started my own little writing series, which is I've been focused on recently. It's called the Decameron writing series.
Oh, nice.
And it's sort of like a space for writers to come together and write together during a 3-week period. And it actually has submissions that are open right now. They close today, so.
So how do people find that?
It's I have a website. It's DecameronWritingSeries.com. It's also on Twitter and Instagram.
All right. Look them up. If you chat that up in the backstage chat, I will make sure that gets added to the show notes for this so that people can find it. And
thanks.
And also, I hope that if you're writing short stories, you'll be sending us something soon. Cheryl, we've already given away that you're working on a novel about Houdini and Bess. How far along is that?
I'm really, really close to finishing a first draft.
Oh, that's exciting.
It should be done within the month. So it's still obviously going to be a very long time coming, but I am incredibly excited about it.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Yeah, my fun fact is that I can tell you anything you need to know about Harry Houdini.
And do you do magic as well?
I don't. I'm learning. I'm borrowing some magic books, and I have a local Houdini expert in Atlanta who is teaching me some things as well.
That is so cool. Well, I am really looking forward to that novel whenever it makes its way into the world.
Thank you.
And Patti, what about you?
Well, so for part of my dissertation, part of it was a creative manuscript of poetry, and so that's where those poems came from. So it's finished, but I need to go. I'm working on going back and polishing it up and thinking about where I want to submit it for publication. So it's called Sudden Lightning, and that title is inspired by what Yeats called his experiences with inspiration, how it came like sudden lightning from his supernatural source. And then the speaker in the poems is kind of always searching for that mystical experience through nature and through technology, and sometimes by combining those two things. So it's kind of a sci-fi slash haunted slash also some childhood memories all kind of mixed in. So I'm looking for a home for that while also kind of going through and editing it, or maybe thinking about breaking it up into some chapbooks. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Wow, that is a fascinating combination. That's actually really exciting. I love, well, as you know, we love cross genre and multi genre things, so that's very cool. Well, thank you all for being on the show. It's just wonderful listening to you all read. Stay safe out there. And to all our listeners, we will be back one last time next week for our Friday Live reading series. Thanks all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.